What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Metagame. It is I, your loving host, Tyler, aka Tovarish Gaming, back once again to bring you another wonderful episode of Metagame. But things are a little different today. Due to technical difficulties, we were unable to go ahead and publish Metagame Episode 4. Don't smile, Alex. It's not funny. And so Alex and I are kind of here just in the afternoon, and we're going to take some time to do a little bit of a special edition episode of Metagame. This show is very much intended to look at the broad spectrum of things and really use games as examples, maybe for our discussion, but not necessarily talk about our opinions on the games. And well, we are very opinionated about things like Call of Duty, I'll give you that. But today, Alex and I just wanted to kind of do like a little sideshow where it was just he and I talking about things that we really enjoy in games, certain game mechanics, especially in MMOs. We might talk about some other games, but this is going to be primarily focused on MMOs. But mechanics and certain games that really got us interested in them, and why we think those certain mechanics work out, and why we think other games might not work so well because of the lack of those mechanics and things and stuff. So, Alex, do you want to get started, or do you want me to start?
By all means, you're the host. Let's just let you start this.
Word. So, I was on MMO Champion last night, and I was kind of like looking at all the changes that they're making to World of Warcraft and stuff.
Yep.
In whatever coming patch. I don't really keep up with it. But,
in-game browser coming to a battle.net near you.
Yeah, true that. In-game, but it's a limited in-game browser, so who knows what that means.
It's going to be half-assed.
But it's just for the support, I think.
It is.
So it's not like a real... I don't think you can like just use it for anything. Not like the one in Secret World. But I was I was starting to look at it and I'm like, this game just looks like shit. You know what I mean?
It's a shell of its former self.
Yeah, it's a shell of its former self, and yet it is still so exceedingly more popular than any other MMO. And it's funny, I look at, I've brought this up before in conversation, I look at the Secret World, and this is a game that had a little bit of hype before its release. A little bit of hype. It was never poised to be like a WoW killer as like Rift or SWTOR were, but it was definitely poised to be a major MMO release. And it came out, and I didn't hear anything about it. And so I just assumed, that it wasn't that great of a game. I didn't hear anybody talk about it. I never met anybody that played it. Gamebreaker stopped doing videos about it. It was just like, it kind of just fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
But, of course, a week ago, I buy the game, and I rank it in the top 3 MMOs that I've ever played. And I played every MMO.
I had never even heard of it until you.
Right. I mean, that's crazy to me. And I wonder, I'm like, why is a game that is so well made just so unpopular? And, you can chalk most of it up to marketing, I guess, right? But I think people...
Like, who makes the game?
It's, Funcom.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But, I worry that, like, people are so jaded by the style of MMO that World of Warcraft is that other MMOs that try to move away from that direction just don't get the love that they deserve, because you get into the game and either you don't understand it or it's not what you think that an MMO should be. Like I've said before, I'm very much playing the Secret World like an RPG. I'm playing it at my own pace. I rarely group with people. I rarely talk to people, and given I'm still like in the second zone, you know what I mean? So I'm sure once I get further in the game and start going to like cities and stuff, that there will be more people to do stuff with, and then I'll do dungeons and stuff like that. But it, every single quest has its own cutscene that's like really well made with full voice acting, and the depth of story is so intense. Like if you enjoy story over any other mechanic in an MMO, and you felt like SWTOR kind of just dicked you because even though it was like a really in-depth story, they just like didn't have anything else going on. Like
Yeah.
Secret World is the MMO to pick up for you. You know what I mean? Like every major character that you walk up to in the game has a list of dialogue boxes, right? So every dialogue box has a description. So it can be they're subjects of what the person might talk about. So you click it, and they'll say a couple sentences, and you can click it again, and you can probably do that anywhere between 3 and 6 times before they run out of dialogue on that particular subject. So you go through, and so right there, just when you walk up to a character, you haven't done a quest yet, you haven't done anything, you have the option to consume like 10 minutes worth, 10 minutes worth of dialogue from them, of story. And that's really cool to me. And then as soon as you accept their quest, you go into a cutscene, and it usually lasts like a minute or maybe 2 minutes. And they really like fill you in on the story and why they're there, and how they really have really well developed personalities. It's not just like, well, I need you to go collect this because I gotta make a bomb. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I make bombs because 10 years ago my family. You know what I mean? Like it's like really just really in depth, and that's
It's
every
more than
single.
just a simple cookie cutter. Like, go
Yeah.
get 10 of these, come back, thanks. Go get 15 of these, cool.
Yeah, and it's just mind-boggling. So I know I've already told you this, but for the purpose of the show, I want to go over like the coolest experience I ever had in the Secret World, which is, I had to hack into a computer, and because I needed information from the computer. So I go into this abandoned office. Excuse me. I go into this abandoned office, and there's this broken picture frame on the floor. And I pick it up, and it's this photograph of fireworks over a lake. And then there's a handwritten note that says, "This is the night that my wife and I got married, and we were watching fireworks over lake whatever. And the whole scene was set to my favorite composer." So I put that down, and then I go to log into the computer. It tells me the username, and it says that I need a password. And it says press 1 to get a password in. So I press 1, and it says the 4 seasons. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do there. That's all it gives me, right? But at the beginning of the game, they tell you that there's a built-in web browser, a full built-in web browser, and that it is designed to be a part of your experience in the game. And so that if you run into a spot where you're like, well, this doesn't make sense, you're probably supposed to pull up Google and Google something. So that's what I did. I pulled up Google, I typed in the 4 seasons, and the first thing was a Wikipedia entry about this famous music piece written by the famous composer Vivaldi. So what did I do? I typed in Vivaldi for the password, and it worked, and I got the info, and it was crazy cool. And there was another thing that I hadn't told you about yet, that I experienced a couple days ago, where I needed to gain access to something. There was like a hidden keypad in the ground, right? So the quest was like, go find this hidden keypad, and the password is the song that the pastor of the church is going to sing on Sunday. Right? So I'm like, what the fuck? So I go, first of all, it takes me forever to find this keypad. It's like hidden under a bush near a tree outside this church. So I finally find this keypad, and then it's like, I need to figure out this passcode that is the song that the pastor's going to sing on Sunday. And I'm like, okay, well maybe this is Google again, right? So I pull up Google, and I'm like, song sang on Sunday or something, whatever. The first thing says that there was a song made in 2008 or whatever. So I type in 2008, and that's wrong. And I'm like, okay, well maybe Google's not the right route here. So I'm like thinking to myself. And now I have only been to church like maybe 5 times in my life. And that's just because I was dragged there. But I remembered back to when I went to military school, and we would, they have the psalm numbers or whatever for the coming Sunday written up on a placard in the church. So I remembered that, and I was like, okay. So I run into the church, and I'm looking around, I'm looking at all the pillars and stuff, and I find this little sign that's got three-digit numbers, and the first one is 576. That's the first psalm that they're going to sing on Sunday. So I run back to the keypad, and I type in 576, and boom, it works. And like that kind of stuff, that amount of engagement, like, makes me love that game. I felt like when I play any other like MMO, minus like Secret World and Defiance, like so for example, Rift, Terra, and WoW, that have just your standard like pick up the exclamation point, go kill 10 things, go collect 10 things. I skip the quest text, right? I don't get involved in the story at all.
Yeah.
Because why would I'm grinding? I
Because
need to hit max
there's
level.
never really much of a story there. It's like you start, even if you go back to like vanilla WoW, like maybe a little bit further into it, but when you first open WoW, everything seemed cool.
Mhm.
But even after 6 months, it's just like I'm just trying to level. Like I don't care about your quest text. I don't care who you are. You're just gonna spew some bullshit about like, oh, there's boars attacking my farm. I need you to kill 6 of them and get 3 pieces of meat. It's
Right.
like, I don't give a shit. Just give me this experience.
Right.
Like that's all I care about this right now. So I mean, really like I don't know if there's any kind of like end game content for Defiance or a Secret
There's
World.
raids in both of them.
Right. Well, I feel like what I was just gonna say was when you look at WoW, it's more of just like quests are just kind of there as filler. It's not even. I mean, there might be storyline behind it. Blizzard may have intended there to be a good storyline, but the storyline sucks until you get to the raids. Like that's really the only cool
Right.
thing is I want to kill Illidan, I want to kill Arthas,
Right.
and there's like storyline built into that. But I mean, everything else leveling wise is just like I need to do this quest so I can level. That's all I care about.
Right, and it's weird. It's weird because even when I picked up Terra, I got really into Terra for a minute, and that was still very much that pick up and play, rush to max level style,
Yep.
and it was fun. But for me, anytime I normally in the past, anytime I've picked up an MMO, that's been my immediate go-to, right? Like I learned that from WoW. So anytime I pick up an MMO, I'm like grind, gotta get to max level, gotta do endgame.
Yep.
Whereas the fact that I don't have time to do any of that anymore, like regardless, has allowed me to pick up games like the Secret World and Defiance that do have such a heavy focus on the beginning of the game and the progression and the questing and the storyline. It's allowed me to like sit back and soak that in without that yearning to like be max level. Because like I'm never gonna raid. You know, I don't care.
It's too time consuming.
Right, and so, but it's crazy, like, especially with the Secret World, and even Defiance too, they just right out of the gate get you so involved with caring about the story that, like, that's like the first thing that they focus on, right? And so right from the get-go, you're conditioned to be like, this matters. Whereas like, WoW, you boot up WoW, and you get your little 4-minute race intro, and then it's just like, haha, you're level 1, here's your first ability, kill 10 boars. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so like there's no story there to like grip you at all. Whereas like you get into Defiance or the Secret World and it's just like, holy crap, like I mean they just load
Well, because they introduced it more just like an RPG like first and then an MMO second.
Right.
So,
which I think is cool, and obviously that's not everybody's cup of tea. If you want to be a hardcore MMO player, these two MMOs probably aren't for you. You can go play Rift or Terra or WoW. But I think for anybody looking for like something different is gonna love these games. And Defiance, I don't know. I'm still like shaky on Defiance because it's kind of confusing me. Like it's really really awesome, but I'm like worried that. Like, I don't know, I read something last night, I was trying to, like, figure out, like, what am I doing, right? Like, I'm keeping up with the story, and I'm watching the story unfold, but I've kind of just been doing this, like, quest line that's been the story since the start of the game. And I was like, this is going to end at some point. Like, at some point, they're going to need filler, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so when is that filler? So I'm, like, Googling stuff, and it said that, it was like, here's the story of Defiance, and I was like, I read it, and I was like, okay, well, I'm like 75% through that already. Okay. And then it was like, and when it ends, that's when the show starts.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the show starts on the 15th, so I have 5 days to do the last 25% of this. But when the show starts, what am I going to do in the MMO?
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I don't know what they've got planned. Tryon, obviously, it's not like they released an MMO with 3 hours worth of content and then said, haha, there's going to be a show. Like, there's
Go
got
watch Defiance on
right.
TV.
There's got to be more to it than that. You know, they didn't just release 3 hours of content. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. But as far as the sequel world goes, yeah, man. Like, it's every character that you meet is like its own game in itself. Like the quests and stuff that you do, and it's really cool because you'll just be running around and there'll be side quests and like it'll just be something laying on the ground, right? Like an eviction notice taped to or nailed to a door, or there's like a broken cell phone laying on the ground from some dead person, and it's like you pick those up, and normally you would just think that it was going to be some quick little like bullshit thing that you don't even want to bother with.
Yeah.
But even those quests, even though those side quests aren't what's the word I'm looking for? They're not segmented. It's just one quick little quest. It probably only takes you like 6 minutes. There's more story in one of those little side quests than there is from level 1 to 20 in World of Warcraft. You know what I mean? And it's mind-boggling, and it's so much fun. And I've never felt so engaged in a story in a game before. Like, there's never been a game that's had story, just story. Not story combined with gameplay, combined with this, combined with that. Just story that's really gripped me that much and made me like, oh my god, I need more. So I think that's really cool. And I don't know, but it's interesting to see, because, you know, I'm really excited for WildStar too, which is not like Secret World and Defiance. It's very much like Terra, Rift, and WoW. And I'm excited for that. But, you know, they're doing new stuff too, like player housing and clan housing, and not just having them be like side items like they are in Rift, but
it's like really innovative and
being like really integrated into how the game is played. Like, from what I understand from their little like trailer video, now this is like speculation. This is from what I gathered. Instead of like going to your city, like instead of hearthing back to Orgrimmar,
you go to your guild house.
You go to your your house.
Yeah. Right.
And so, like, all of your vendors and your food and all that shit is, like, at your house. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited
that's awesome.
for that. But I mean,
because then it might be, like, limited to where, like, you might have to do quests or raids or something to get, like, a certain part of your house. Like, accessibility. So you might still have to go to, like, a major city for a bank until you get, you know, a private bank installed in your house or something like.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's really cool. But what about you? Awesome. What about you, or what about an MMO that you've played or something that's really like, or any game mechanic that you think needs to be like used more often?
Well, I mean, guild houses definitely. Honestly, as far as like MMOs are concerned, really the biggest one I was ever into was WoW. You know, I played Guild Wars, which I had my gripes with that, but that was more like gameplay issues that I had and zoning issues where they were just like cutting up players instead of letting, you know, everyone just be on one big server. It's storyline is a big thing for me definitely too, which obviously WoW didn't have. And then I think mostly at this point for me for an MMO it would just be like gameplay mechanics. Like, I don't want just the same, here's your action bars, you know, you're going to press 1, 2, 3, you're going to get in a rotation, and it's just boring skills, you know, enemies stand still, and you just kind of fire back and forth.
Outside of a first-person shooter, what would you suggest? Because I think the only MMO that's not like a shooter like Firefall or Defiance, that's just like guns and ammo, I think the only game that really... They all have I mean, you know, Terra is aim and stuff, but it's still an action bar. It's still a rotation.
Well, it's less of a concern with the action bar. I want it to be more engaging, I guess, like the actual combat. Not necessarily make it like a first-person shooter, but like even Terra, to a degree, was a lot more in-depth combat-wise than WoW.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because even adding the aspect of like you have to be moving. Or I don't know if they could even take stuff from like older RPGs where, say, you have a sword, you can still have an action bar, but you might actually have to like move your mouse and like swing at people. Like even something as simple as that, I feel like would make it a lot more fun. I don't know how you would really do that with healing or anything like that or tanking, but I don't know. WoW just kind of gets stagnant for me.
Well, you know how WildStar's doing it.
How are they doing it?
They're doing it like a mob or a boss or whatever has certain abilities, and those abilities have palettes, I guess you'd call them, palette shapes, right? So, like, let's say you're fighting something that does, like, a sweeping attack, right? Like a sweeping strike.
Yeah.
There's, like a conal... I can't make shit out. But there's, like, a conal shape that lands on the ground that's red.
Yeah.
And if you're in that cone, if you're in that shape, you get hit with the attack. And so you gotta, like, roll out of the way. Is that so? And the more complicated the bosses get and stuff, the more complicated the patterns get on the ground, and so the more like you have to use special techniques to dodge and get out of the way and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something that would interest you? Like, is that what you're
I mean,
talking
something
about?
like that, or even as much as to say, like, adding more randomness to bosses. I guess this comes down to making the AI smarter.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, one of my biggest concerns with something like World of Warcraft, like a boss fight, like you're saying, like, there are things like that where it's like, okay, there's going to be a cone attack coming in 5 seconds, but you have stuff like deadly boss mods, where
Right.
you have forums telling you exactly, like, I hate the structure of raiding, which is why I always got into PvP takes more skill than raiding,
Right.
and then people try to argue the other direction, and I'm just like, there's no possible way.
Unless
you-
unless you're the top 3 guilds that are
But
actually
even
doing
so,
that.
once you figure out a strategy, that strategy is going to work 100% of the time, assuming
Right.
that you do it correctly.
Right. Right.
But it's like, you know, this boss is going to do X at 60%. You know, at 35%, ads are going to come out. Like,
Right.
you know, at 10%, he's going to get double damage. Like, things like that. I feel like, I don't know if there's a way to program it differently, but adding either more elements into a fight, or like randomness, or less just like, you know the strategy, cool, you can beat this boss 100% of the time now.
Too much RNG
That,
though
like-
can be frustrating, right?
True, but
Because then it's just like, well, what am I supposed to do? Right? If every time you go into the boss, everything's completely random, and like you just continue getting this like random pattern that just fucks you, and there's no way to like actually beat it. That would be pretty frustrating, I would think.
I don't know.
But yeah, a good balance between the two would definitely be a good thing. I'm interested to see like how some games take rating. Like, I'm interesting, like WildStar, we kind of know how that's gonna work. I don't really know how the Secret World rating works. I haven't looked it up.
Yeah.
I've seen a video here and there. I should probably look into that. But you know, Defiance, like last night, there's Arcfall events, which are like, they're not boss fights. They're like global events that happen, that like something lands and then there's things
Like
to
a world
kill.
spawn.
Yeah, and then people show up, right? And I had done a couple smaller Arcfalls, and I was like, oh, this is cool. You know, it's like Firefall, whatever. And then last night, I'm like in the middle of a quest, and it's taking me past an Arcfall, so I'm like, cool, I'm going to stop and do this Arcfall. And I got off my bike and started to walk over a hill to like, and then the Arcfall was on the other side of the hill.
Yeah.
And I swear, I kid you not, I walked up the hill and I saw what it looked like, and I turned around and I minimized and I pulled up a screen recorder because I was like, this is going to be the coolest shit I've ever done. And I kid you not, I mean, I'm going to upload the video later today, or maybe not today, but tomorrow, so you'll see it. So I turned on the screen recorder and I turned around, and I mean, it was just awesome. There was like 25 other people, and just like lightning and fucking crazy bugs coming out of the ground, and explosions and grenades, and like, it was so awesome. And I don't know, like, it was very much felt like like the random events from Guild Wars, and and you know, the way that thumping works in Firefall, but something about it just felt like extra epic.
Yeah.
Or it was very much like fighting the melding tornadoes in Firefall, which I know you haven't played Firefall yet, but for people that know what I'm talking about, it's very much like the melding tornadoes. But I'm interested to see. I mean, that's just like, I just started playing that game too. You know what I mean? So like, for it to grip you like that, like, I think that Guild Wars was on the right track, except they kind of fucked you, right? Because
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2 is like level 1, you go and do that cool-ass first quest where you fight that crazy-ass boss, and it's dependent
Yeah.
on what race you pick. And you're like, what the fuck? You're like, is this how this game is going to be? This is amazing! And then, like, the next 20 levels, you don't do anything half as cool as that. And I was like, well, this is fucking gay.
Then it just turns into go kill 20
right.
of these.
It goes
Go
right
collect
back to being a
15
normal
trees.
MMO.
Like, yep.
And you think that the randomness is cool, too. And you're like, oh, these random events are so tight. And then you backtrack one day to go finish a quest that you missed or something, and you realize that all those events are still going on. And, like,
Yep.
and then you realize it's all just, you know, a well-oiled machine under the hood. And that really, like, bummed me out. That, like, instantly killed Guild Wars for me. The moment I repeated an event, the moment that that it clicked in my head that, like, events were repeatable and that I could figure out what time they were going to start, or I could start them myself, I, like, was done. It was, like, game over for me.
I got to, like, level 3 in Guild Wars 2 and was just, like, bored.
I got, like, a level 26 Mesmer and then, like, a couple other level 15s. And yeah, it just wasn't doing it for me. But I think, like, I don't know, Firefall, you know, is working on the persistent world AI, which is essentially, they want an overarching AI that kind of acts like a dungeon master, and just, so it's events like Guild Wars, except they're really actually random. Like, basically the AI reacts to the way that players play, and then certain things happen. So if there's, like, a large number of players in a certain area, then chances are something crazier is going to happen there. Or if players take this tower, then that's going to affect how the AI spawns Chosen around the map. Or if they push back the melding here, then maybe there will be a counterattack here. And so they want it to feel like Guild Wars did before you figured out that Guild Wars actually is just kind of a lie. And they want, you know, Red 5's big thing is, like, we want the AI to do stuff that we can't predict. Like, they were like, we want the AI to be its own thing that we have no control over. And that's just, it's going to be the AI's interaction with the players and vice versa. Which is obviously, it's a cool idea. It's a lofty goal. But I'm
probably
interested.
very hard to pull off.
Yeah. But I'm interested to see, you know, how that's going to work. And I think that Neverwinter wants to do the same thing. And the reason I use the term Dungeon Master with Firefall is because I was listening to the Neverwinter devs talk about the Neverwinter MMO, and they used that term. They said, we want, like, a Dungeon Master AI for the game. And I don't know if they're taking it as seriously as Red 5 is right now. I don't know if they have, like, the development for that going on. I don't know what their specific intentions are, but they very much were talking about, like, a Dungeon Master type feeling to the game, which I'm kind of excited about Neverwinter too. It looks like a pretty standard MMO, but the combat looked actually, like, really cool. Like, the combat looked like a mix between
for
Guild Wars
Neverwinter
and
is pretty
Terra.
cool too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't go wrong with D&D, right?
Yeah.
But the only, like, I don't know, that I feel like Neverwinter is kind of trying to take advantage of its following, because, like, I was looking at the Founders Packs, and there's a $200 Founders Pack that has an exclusive that lets you play the Drow. And you can't play the Drow if you don't buy this Founders Pack.
That's so stupid, though.
And, like, obviously the Drow is what everyone wants to play, because if you've read any Forgotten Realms books, hello. So, like,
coolest thing ever.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of like, why are you trying to take advantage? Like, that very much felt, I mean, I don't know.
Those few people that will actually do that.
Right. And you know, Firefall, their $100 Founder Pack has an LGV, which is a motorcycle. And right now in the beta, there's no way to get a mount other than to buy that. But, like, when the game comes out, there will be. You know what I mean? So they're not keeping me from being able to have something. Like, I'm still going to get an LGV that's going to have the same stats. But this one's just got a different skin, which I guess you could argue that a different race is just a different skin. But I think that, you know, like, if WoW came out with an expansion, it was like, well, you got to buy a Founders Pack to play Dark or Blood Elves. You know what I mean? Like, everybody would be like, what the fuck, man? Like, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? If they're gonna let the game be free to play, but I don't know, to throw something like that in a Founders Pack and to make it $200,
Yeah,
Like
that's nice.
$100 was stretching it, I thought, with Red 5. Like that's kind of like the maximum I could imagine spending on a Founders Pack for a game. And I'd have to really be invested in that game. And
Oh
I
yeah,
just feel like that the $200 is there because they know people are going to buy it.
probably.
Because there's D&D
Someone
fans that
will.
are 30, 40 years old that we can't even comprehend the connection that they have with that universe. You know what
Well,
I
I mean,
mean?
even look at WoW when like the Spectral Tiger mount came out from the card game. Like you had to get the
Right.
card, which gave you a code for an in-game mount. People were selling this shit on eBay for like $800, and people bought it.
No,
Like just to have a mount in game. Like that shit's
it's more
nuts.
than that. It's
Hmm?
more than that now. I think it's like
Probably.
$1,200.
I'm just saying it's like you could put any price tag on it, someone's gonna buy it most likely.
Right, right,
Like there's at least one person that will buy it.
right. It's either yeah. I don't know. Whatever. That's fine. Companies
Don't
need
get me
to,
wrong, it's crazy, but
yeah.
someone
Companies
will
need to
do
make
it.
money, so I can feel that. But like, what do you see as like the few like if you had to pick one MMO that's currently out right now, not in beta, so that's
Yeah.
not Tesso, that's not Firefall, that's not Neverwinter, not Wildstar. If you had to pick one MMO that has actually been released
Yeah.
that you think defines the future of MMOs, what would you say it is?
But defines the futures of MMOs?
Yeah.
I mean, that would honestly be very hard for me to say because so many of them have failed
Right.
so hard that it's
Right.
like the only one going strong is WoW, which I'm just sick of WoW.
But
Like, I'll
WoW,
log back in
WoW
and just
by
kinda-
no means defines the future of MMOs.
No, definitely
it
not,
defines
but I
the
mean-
death or rather the elderly.
I don't know. I mean, from what I've read and seen in videos, and from what you have told me about Defiance and Secret World, like, I feel like the storyline and the engaging your players as much as those games seem to do,
Mhm.
I feel like that should be the future of an MMO. It's
Right.
just a matter of how well the game does.
Right.
Because I honestly thought the SWOTOR was just gonna revolutionize MMOs, and it flopped.
Yeah.
Like it did so
Because
bad.
it was a WoW clone, and everybody thought
Exactly.
it was going to do that though. So
But I mean, as soon as I was like, okay, you take a Star Wars series, you make it an MMO, you make it at least as good as WoW, you add all the, you know, even kind of like Radiant AI mechanics that Skyrim has to some
Mhm.
degree, voice actors for everything. Like it sounded like it was just gonna kick everything's ass,
right.
and they just sucked.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like that was headed in the right direction. They just didn't do it correctly.
Right.
So, I mean, I feel like all these games kind of have to pull together. I don't. If I had to pick an MMO to play right now, I don't. I guess the Secret World because it's $30. Like I wouldn't drop 60 on Defiance right now.
Right.
Um, I'm certainly not putting any more money into WoW, and
Yeah,
everything
fuck
else
that.
is just kind of dead. Like, what
True.
are the recent
I
ones?
mean,
that came out?
Terra's
Age
still
of
really
Conan?
good. Like
Ion
even though
is
I
good.
had to remove Terra from my hard drive because I needed space.
Yeah.
Like I stopped playing it because I've got way too much shit going on and like there's way too many games to play. But I will always recommend Terra. Like that, as far as WoW clones go, Terra takes the cake by miles, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Terra is still a really awesome game. The art style is cool as shit. The combat mechanics are super fun. The way the classes work, I think is really cool. The questing, even though it's still very standard, like pick up, go kill 10 things, they streamlined it to hell. So it
Yeah.
like still feels very fluid, very fun. So I will recommend Terra to anybody. It's an amazing game. I feel like the Secret World is just really niche.
Yeah.
You know, I think that like somebody like me is super into it because that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking to play an MMO more like an RPG, and I'm looking for a really in-depth story. I think as far as like popularized MMOs, like or well-populated MMOs go, I wouldn't really
Mhm.
recommend the Secret World. Like if if somebody came up to me and was like, all I've ever played is WoW, and now I hate WoW and I want to play a different MMO, I'd point them at Terra. I wouldn't point them at Secret World, even though I think the Secret World's a better game, just because it's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of...
What's the one coming out that you're telling me about?
WildStar?
So like kind of... What is it, WildStar? Yeah, I mean, that game looks pretty awesome, to be honest.
The one... Are we talking about the same game?
The one with the guild housing, and it's got kind of like the corny looking
WildStar
graphics.
Yeah, it looks tight. It looks like WoW revamped. It looks like WoW 2.0, which I mean, I'm down with that. I think it's cool. Have you looked at the classes and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. The classes look really cool. I
think the races look cool.
The races are cool. The paths. Have you looked at the paths?
No.
The paths are a really cool take on, like, I'm interested to see how much it actually integrates to how your gameplay is.
Mm-hmm.
But they have, like, there's explorer, settler, scientist, and warrior. I think those are the four. And it's like, or maybe settler and explorer is the same thing, and then there's a fourth one. But like warrior or soldier, I think is what it's actually called. Soldier is like, you do everything with, brute force, and you're all about like helping the innocent and fighting evil and whatever. And then like explorers or settlers or whatever are like always on the frontier of doing stuff and like. But I watched the video because it's cool. Depending on which path you choose, dictates the type of like side quests that you get. I think I don't know if it's side quests or if it's main quests. Like if it's actually your like storyline. But I can't imagine that they would have 4. It'd be like making 4 different MMOs. But it dictates how your side quests work. So like if you're a soldier, then chances are you're gonna run in like events are gonna happen to you that are like, rescue these people and kill this shit. Whereas like if you're a settler, it'll send you to like really far out reaches of the map to like explore new areas, and like you'll like try to find artifacts, and like chances are like you'll find yourself in a dungeon that you didn't know was there, and stuff like that. And then scientist was like, you find artifacts and you make shit. I don't know. You just go watch the videos. But I thought that was really
more
cool.
than just every class essentially doing the same thing,
right?
And just end up killing and collecting.
Right. So you get to pick your race, your class, and your path. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think that definitely adds to the replayability of alts. Like,
well, definitely, because again, you're not doing the same thing over and over. It's not like, okay, I leveled a warrior to 80, now I'm going to level a priest. Okay, it doesn't matter. You're still going to go through the exact same zones, do the same quests. You're going to grind the exact same things. Like,
right, but if you level a spell slinger who's an explorer, and then you go back and level a warrior who's a soldier, it's going to be like 2 completely different leveling experiences, which I think is super cool. Because I think that games need to take it one way or another. Because the Secret World took it in the direction of, you can make as many characters as you want, but you only really need one. And that's because they have the skill wheel where, the first thing you do is max out the skills and the weapons that you actually use. But you have the ability to, the more you play the game, you just keep gaining ability points and whatever the other kind of points are called. But the more you play the game, you just keep gaining those points. So once you've maxed out what you like to use, then you got to spend the points somewhere else. So eventually, it's possible to fill your entire wheel and literally just be a god hybrid. Like, imagine being able to beat all 10 classes in WoW at once. That's essentially what you can do in the Secret World. So they took it that direction, which I think is really cool. Cool, I only have to have one character. I can make him be good at whatever I want, and I think that's really awesome. Or you can take it the other direction of WildStar, which is, we want you to have alts, and we're going to make it worthwhile to have alts, and it's going to be more engaging than just your action bar is a different color. So I think that's really cool, too. I think that it needs to go one direction or the other, and I think that both games are doing a good job of taking those directions to the fullest of their extent, or their ability. So yeah, that's cool. Um, I don't know. It's definitely interesting to see how this show is going to integrate with Defiance. I'm kind of like
Yeah, I
I'm
mean
just really anticipating
that's
that.
definitely well, you talk about innovation all the time. That's definitely the first game I think that we've seen that does that.
Oh yeah, no, it's brand new. It's
So
definitely.
I
I mean,
mean,
that's
it's
why I bought the game in the first place was because they were innovating. You know, I said right from the get go that I had no intention to really even play the game in the first place. But when you wait 7 days to play it, and then it actually ends up being a really cool game, so you know,
yeah.
yeah, I'm playing it. Um, Chances are I won't really play it that long. You know what I'm noticing though about a lot of these games
What's that?
is that the one mechanic that no one can seem to get right is the process of equipping gear.
How so?
Like,
What do you mean?
I think World of Warcraft's like the only one that's got that going for them. The, maybe it's just because I'm not used to the way their inventories work or whatever, but like, especially with Firefall and Defiance, man, these FPS MMOs that don't
Yeah.
have a classic like wear a neck piece and a hat and shoulders and whatever. Um, they kind of just like give you this block inventory that's just got a
Mhm.
ton of shit in it, and then to like equip stuff, especially because Defiance is designed for console, which is
Yeah.
killing me. The menus in Defiance are killing me because they're not
Yeah.
designed for PC at all. You can feel it too. Most stuff is press and hold, like it's press and hold
Yep.
X on Xbox, but I gotta fucking do that on my PC. Like that's killing me. And then another example is like I have to double click shit because I don't even fucking know why. Like, why am I having to double click shit in menus? You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it's just weird. But like to equip something, like I gotta like double click it and then but it's all on this like list, and then everything that's equipped just has an E next to it. So I'm always looking at
That's
my entire inventory, and then like there is a screen where you have just your character and then like just what you're wearing, but
mhm.
I don't know. I just feel like there's hoops that I'm jumping through, and then like with the secret world, it's like I can bring up my inventory, I can bring up my character screen, and that's a little more like standardized, but it's
Yeah.
still
I mean, it's always a problem playing a PC game that was designed for a console versus, the other way around.
You know what I think it is, actually, and I'm just now realizing this as I talk about it?
What?
It's that WoW is the only MMO, barring maybe Rift. Like, I only played Rift for like a couple hours. I don't really remember
Yeah.
exactly. But like, WoW's the only MMO that I can think of right now that has icons for gear that match what the gear looks like. I think that's actually what my problem is that
Yeah.
none of these other games have that. Um, and so when I get a new ring in the Secret World, the icon for it looks just like the
same
other
as
ring that I
everything
have.
else.
And
Yeah.
then so I'm constantly having to compare every item that I'm ever looking at to make sure, oh my god, is this better or do I need to sell it? Instead of just being like, oh yeah, I remember I was hanging on to that icon, that item, and I
Mhm.
see it, and when I see the icon, I can remember what the item is, and I say, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I was hanging on to that for my next level because I haven't unlocked, the ability to use it yet or whatever. And I think that like companies need to just
I feel like that's something simple that should just be in every game.
right,
Like,
right. Like hire an art student who's still in college who just to make little fucking squares that have
yeah.
pictures in them. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's such a small thing that I think has such a huge impact on my ability to comprehend gear,
Oh, it
um,
definitely does.
and it's killing me. Like I hate it, and no other MMO can seem to get it right, and it's driving me fucking
Yeah.
nuts. But it's funny. I didn't realize that until we actually had this conversation. That's what my problem is that WoW has gear that the icon matches what the gear is, and so you can tell what it is before you even
As it
highlight it.
should be.
It's weird, man. I don't know. You got anything else that you want? Any other mechanics or cool stuff you want to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, MMOs, something is gonna really have to, like, do something crazy awesome, or I don't know, MMOs have just kind of died for me. Fuck Titan. Like, WoW, like I played so many years of WoW, and it just, since Burning Crusade, it just went downhill. And I'm not the only person that shares that belief, but obviously, people are still playing it.
Right.
And honestly, gear, I think, is one of the biggest reasons. That's why people raid. I mean, there's like the super hardcore people that raid just be world first guilds, whatever.
Right.
Most people just want to look cool in a game.
Yeah.
So it's like that's why they always bring out new tier sets. We're on like what, tier 15 now or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It just sounds ridiculous, but they're constantly making new sets of gear. So they're holding on to their player base. As much as they've dumbed down the game, people still want to look cool. But
that's the funniest
MMOs
part to me is that
I kind of like hate MMOs at this point.
Yeah.
Like I want something to just be cool and like knock me off like my seat, and I'll be like, damn, I'm playing this game forever.
Right.
But
I think the next like big step in gaming is gonna have to do more with hardware than with software, and then the software is gonna have to catch up with that hardware. Like,
yeah,
right, because first we had the hardware that made MMOs possible, and then MMOs got popular, and now MMOs are like the big thing going on. But I feel like the next step is stuff like the Ouya and the Oculus Rift, especially Oculus Rift, right? Like, that's going to be the next major step in hardware. And so as soon as you have a game that allows you to actually immerse yourself in a three-dimensional environment, or sorry, hardware that allows you to do that, you're going to see game companies catch up with that and invent a whole new game that is for that, and that's going to be something that you do. Right? Imagine, do you know what Animal Crossing is?
Yeah.
Imagine, because, fuck it, I'll say any day of the week, Animal Crossing is an awesome-ass game. For what it is. For what it is, it's really good. Imagine a three-dimensional Animal Crossing. Imagine another world where all you do is live your normal fucking life and live in your house and do whatever, but it's in an imagined state.
Yeah.
Like, the Oculus Rift is going to create the ability for a game company to make a game that is just you living in a cartoon.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
You would live in Azeroth, but it's not just like you're a hero, like just raiding, PvPing in random arenas.
Right, but like even I'm just thinking like in terms of just like stupid like games that aren't about more than that, like Animal Crossing. Like, imagine if there was just a game that you logged into and you just lived, you just did shit, like walk down the street and
like everyday activities.
Right, everyday activities. That'll happen. That will happen, and people will love it. I guarantee it, because it's literally like imagine Second Life 3D. That's what I'm trying to get at. Second Life 3D. That'll happen, and people will go bananas. I'm telling you.
It's like taking The Sims to a whole nother level.
Yeah, where you're, instead of moving around an avatar, you are the avatar, seeing through the avatar's eyes in a three-dimensional world. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. That's like the next big thing. That is the next big thing, because it's going to be that immersive experience that we're used to, but instead of having the disconnectivity of I hit the wrong button on my keyboard, or I fucking, whatever there is, whatever breaks your immersion because of the fact that there's a black box around around the world that you're immersed in, and the fact that if you look left and right, you break that immersion. That's the next big thing. The next big thing is an MMO or like a Second Life or Animal Crossing type three-dimensional
Titan in virtual reality.
Oh my god! But that's an exciting thought. But yeah, I don't know, man. There's definitely a lot going on. There's definitely a lot of innovation. we are in the midst of like this industry becoming something like totally different. You know what I mean? I think eventually video games are just going to integrate into real life, and it's all going to be just one thing. You know what I mean?
Gaming in real life are just gonna be one.
Right, in the sense
I think it would be
that...
a long time before that happened.
Well, yeah, it will be a long time, and it might not even be in our lifetime, but it's going to happen. It's going to get to the point, you know, where it's no longer... the hardware that you buy for a video game is going to be the same hardware that you buy to do other daily life activities, right? Because it's going to be some fucking chip in your eye or some shit that allows you to see a digital overlay. And whether or not you're looking at...
That Bruce Willis movie Surrogates, but like gaming.
Yeah, but I mean, whether or not it's like doing your taxes digitally in your brain or playing a game, it's all going to be the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We'll see. Whatever. I'm like way off in speculation land.
You woke up too early today.
I did. I woke up way too early. This is ridiculous. People are going to see the clock in the corner and be like, 3 p.m. Like, still woke up early.
Yeah, you woke up at noon.
Yeah, anyway, okay, so now we're derailing. Is there anything else that you want to say? We're about at the hour mark.
I just want something, like we've talked about at work, something to be as cool as our first time playing WoW.
Yeah.
That just, like, completely embraces you and just sucks you into the world.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that game just, like, consumed my being when I started playing it.
Right. You almost need a whole new genre, though, to do that, right?
I mean, I feel like you do. But, I mean, as much as I've played RPGs since I was 5, when you make an awesome storyline, I mean, those do that to me. I'll spend... I've spent 200 plus hours in Skyrim that's been logged on Steam. Right. I probably played through Final Fantasy games. Like,
well, that's happening to me with Defiance and Secret World, just with the story. The story is enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fact that the gameplay is a little... It's funny, I was playing Defiance last night, and little things that would normally just set me off, I was like, whatever. Things like getting stuck on a rock. Like, things like... a little bit of lag, my reload didn't work, I couldn't get into a truck, the truck wouldn't move. Stuff like that would normally, I'd be like, fuck this, I'm gonna wait for the bugs to get fixed. I was just like, whatever, don't care, I'm in the middle of a story, like, whatever, I'm gonna fix it, and I just sit there for 30 seconds and fuck with it until it worked, and I'm like, okay, let's go, woohoo! You know what I mean? And like, it just didn't bug me. And I think that's because I'm also, the more I play games, and the more I play like betas, and the more that I realize what goes into making a game, the less I'm that like jaded little WoW player where I'm like, it's not polished. This is bullshit.
Everything needs to work 100% of the time at all times.
Like I don't get bothered by little shit like that anymore. And you know, and it happens to me in the Secret World too. Like something will break, and I'm like, whatever, it's cool. You know, the game works for the most part, and it's super fun. And I'm like engaged enough in the story that I'm like, normally those things would break the immersion for me.
Yeah.
But I've gotten to the point now where like I know that I'm playing a game, and so I'm like, I'm just like, whatever, it's cool, you know, like I'll figure it out. And I fuck with it for 20 seconds, and I fix the bug, and I go on my way. So yeah.
I think also we've played enough games to realize at this point in our lives that not everything's going to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And it's probably a lot harder to program and actually make stuff work than probably 90% of people.
99.9% of people think, yeah. It's crazy, man. Fucking... I love it, though. That's what I love about our industry, is it's so, like, just so intensely deep, and it's... What goes into making a game is, like, so far beyond what goes into making any other kind of art form.
Yeah.
You know, because, like, a movie, it's costume design, cinematography, photography, and audio.
Yeah.
Right? Video game, it's all that, plus modelers, programmers, 3D artists, 2D artists, you know, graphic design artists, fucking voice actors.
Take something as simple as Minecraft, and I mean, that's probably a lot harder to program than people even think or give credit for.
Oh yeah.
and that was all mostly done in Java. Like,
True. It is definitely a hell of a process to make a game, and definitely a hell of an industry. But alright, cool. This was fun. This was a nice little conversation about what makes us like games. It was nice to do a little bit of an opinionated, like, chillax session.
yeah,
We will be doing Metagame Monday or Tuesday of next week. Metagame episode 4.
I'm off
And
Monday, so
Word. So probably Monday. And then tomorrow we are doing episode 1 of Theorycraft, which is Alex and I's new show where we do really absurd fun things in the lovely game StarCraft 2. So more to come on that. Keep an eye out, and thanks for watching. This has been great. Make sure to follow Alex at Felborn on Twitter. That's FELLBORN. And always follow me at Tovarish Gaming. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.